Back and better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve. A little tardy to the party on this Wednesday. I am to blame. I am the problem over here. Had to make a round trip excursion, a 450-mile round trip excursion today. I was almost going to turn into an amputation. I had to get my ring resized. Was worried it was going to turn into an amputation. Was worried I was going to come here looking like 88 Fingers Edward
Tardy
to
to
the
the
show.
party, but early to the countdown. So
Early
we
to the
still beat a
countdown.
time. We still beat something.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But I'm back. Appreciate Don being patient with me today. A little bit later than usual. We're going to try our best, and I think we'll be able to wrap up by 7:50, 8 o'clock, just given the fact that it's late. It's only the two of us today. But you can't push this show off. That's the hard part. You can't push this show off. Next week, we're talking a big movie anyway, one of the most original movies I think we're going to see this year in Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17.
Yeah, man.
So we got to talk this show today. We got to recap the 97th Academy Awards. You want to talk about being tardy to the party, too? Shit, I didn't know this thing started at 6. I was almost 45 minutes late to this damn thing.
I think I did the same thing either last year or the year before. So
I've been watching the Oscars since the 80, I think the 82nd Oscars, and I just had it conditioned in my mind that it's 7 o'clock. Like it's 7 o'clock because it's 3 hours, and I know it ends about 10:15, 10:20.
yeah,
And then the news comes on, and then it's time for bed. And like so it was like 6:30ish, and Catherine's like, I think we got time for a Sex in the City episode before the Oscars. And I'm like, hell yeah, always down. Just started season 5. Carrie fucked over Aiden, but I'm still good. I'm over it. Anyway, so we got like 10 minutes in, and then she found on her phone, she's like, Kieran Culkin won Best Supporting Actor. I'm like, that's got to be a prediction. It doesn't start for another 15 minutes. Letterbox is probably somebody's prediction or something like that. And then I'm like, and then I looked at my phone because I was fucking with my cards at the same time, so I was away from my phone. Then I looked at my phone and I saw you guys chatting, and I'm like, son of a bitch, I'm late to the one award show I care about. But either way, didn't they were slow to start, so it wasn't really missing much,
right.
at least from what I can tell. But no Joe today to recap the 97th Academy Awards. That is a shame. Definitely miss him, but there is no shortage of stuff to talk about with this year's Oscars. 19, I'm just looking at the numbers here. It's actually the first time I've seen them. 19.7 million was the ratings for this year. Somehow up from last year. Last year's was 19.5. And then you look at the year before that, it was 18.7. I'm kind of shocked that it was higher. It was more watched this year because last year you had Barbie and Oppenheimer. And this year I don't feel like you had a movie that like a huge mainstream hit of the best picture nominees that really stood out. I mean, you had Wicked, which was huge, but you didn't have like that Barbie Oppenheimer combo
Right.
either. So kind of interesting to see. The numbers on that and how that played out. But it is great to see you kind of starting a little discombobulated, a little all over the place today, just being the late arrival. Before we dig into the 97th Academy Awards, we got a little roadmap here. How are you today, Dom?
I'm doing quite all right. I have a meatloaf in the oven, but I think I timed it so that way in about 40 minutes, which is how long this Zoom call should last, I'll take it out. So we got it. We
You can
got
check
'em.
on it during the intermission, too.
Yes, exactly. I am about as careful with my timing as I am the Oscars.
Yeah, better than me. Better than me. So I guess opening generally, just general thoughts on the ceremony. I thought it was well done. I thought it was a little strange, and I don't know why they did it like this. I haven't found the reason for why. The one thing that was missing this year, and I thought it was going to make it a little bit shorter. And again, these are just kind of general observations. I'm not really, I'm kind of pulling at threads. After I thought about it, though. They usually perform the best original song nominees. They didn't do that this year.
They did. Well, okay, technically, Wicked is not original.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. I did notice that, but they did start with Wicked, which I know you missed, but it was pretty good. It was obviously truncated because they couldn't do the whole damn thing, but it was incredible performance. It was done very much live, and it was damn good. But other than that, yeah, you're right. They didn't do the usuals. We didn't get any Cheetos, Flamin' Hot Cheetos this year.
And the other thing I'll say this too is like, I really wish that they for Best Picture they would cut it back down to 5 or cut it back down to 8. I feel like having 10 is excessive.
I think so
I
too.
feel I feel like it's way too excessive. It's too bloated of a category. But I do think this though. Okay, if you weren't going to have the original songs, you know how they did each individual movie. They
Right.
spotlighted each individual movie. I say you make that 60 seconds. You make that like a short trailer for that movie to give it the space. And I think if they cut down the nominations to like even 8 and they weren't going to do the original songs, I think you would have had more than enough time to accommodate those movies, at least a 60-second little clip show.
What two movies from this list would you cut?
Well, that's hard to say because I haven't seen them all.
Sure.
That's tough to say. I guess first, I mean, the one that is already aged like milk is Amelia Perez, and I haven't even seen the thing and really don't even want to touch it.
Sure.
Really don't. It's probably the first Oscar movie that I can remember that I've started watching that like between the divisiveness with it, and it's not even critics versus audiences. The critics weren't even huge on this movie either. Audiences were very negative to it. It's just one of those movies I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
So I would say like I guess you would take that one. I don't know.
I would say Wicked, and I really really like Wicked, but
See, I would cut Dune Part 2, I think, before I cut Wicked. I really would. I don't know if that's probably a hot take in some people's eyes. I would cut Dune Part 2 before I would cut
I think
Wicked.
that is I can see why you say that, but I think that's a hot take, which is funny because I'm the more musically inclined one, and you're the more cinema auteur. But
It's funny. Well, I guess it's maybe part retroactive. I'm like, you know what? In the Heights didn't get shit back in the day, and I'm still mad about that.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm for musical representation. The one of the nominees I'd like to see, I really want to see The Brutalist. I just don't have 18 hours at my disposal quite yet. I will watch that movie eventually. Honestly though, even before The Brutalist, the one I really want to see is Nickel Boys.
yeah, same.
That's the one I really want to see. Even though if you just read like a 2-sentence plot synopsis, that it sounds like you want to slit your wrists afterwards. But it sounds like a great movie. But either way, though, lots of stuff, a lot of threads we can chew on here. I thought the ceremony was good. I like Conan. I think Conan. It wasn't that I thought Conan, and I go back and forth on him. I always think Conan's a funnier presence than the jokes he tells. I think a lot of his humor, he's one of the rare comedians where I find his delivery and his like demeanor funnier often than the actual joke. I've always respected him. He works his ass off. I liked him as a host. I don't know if it was Kimmel fatigue or what.
I think so.
But
I think that helped.
I think it helped. I also think Conan is just slightly edgier than Kimmel. I think he's slightly edgier, and I think he's just funnier with delivery. I would love to see him back. I really, if they're going to keep going host route, I would, because they will never, and it sucks. They will never go, and this was even before the whole slap incident. They'll never get Chris Rock. They'll never get Seth MacFarlane. They'll never get anybody that is really going to push the boundaries anymore, which is a damn shame. Because I still contend the funniest year, Baldwin and Martin were good, but the funniest year with the Oscars was Seth MacFarlane, and then Chris Rock. Like of the new generation of the Oscars, I thought those two knocked it out of the park. Was funny, was irreverent.
Yeah.
But after MacFarlane did that, we saw your boob song. They'll never have him back. They'll never have. There's a lot of people they'll probably never have back. But I thought O'Brien overall, I think he kept it moving. I thought that was that's kind of the job of the host in a way, to kind of get in and get out of the way. I thought he did really well. And I also thought too that, there just wasn't a lot of extraneous stuff that kind of took away from the movies, which I also appreciated too. The actors and the performances and stuff, you know what I mean, for some of the more, politically charged moments of the evening, which mainly revolved around Israel-Palestine. That's going to happen either way whenever you put a mic in somebody's face, especially the documentary filmmakers. They're not going to take their minutes to thank God, the reverend, and then their neighbors and everything like that. They're going to use it to make a point. That's what what they know to do. And I love it. But at the same time, though, I do think that this ceremony moved. I thought it was fluid, and I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun overall. I don't know if it's memorable, and I think that might be more of the fault of some of the movies than actually the ceremony itself. But in general, I thought it was a uniformly solid ceremony. What say you?
Honestly, yeah, we've been watching Kimmel for so long that we have Kimmel fatigue, and I don't really remember what it's like to have another host. I mean, obviously, I do remember Chris Rock and Seth MacFarlane, but like Kimmel is always the default in my mind, like the basis in which we judge everyone else. Not because he's so great, but because he's so standard.
The last time he was not the host,
Was Chris Rock, right?
no, it wasn't. The last time he wasn't the host, remember, and this was a friggin' disaster when they had Regina Hall, Amy Schumer, and Wanda Sykes in 2022. They had the three of them, and that was a disaster. It wasn't because
It wasn't
I mean,
Regina. Yeah,
I like Regina and Wanda more.
yeah.
Schumer wasn't bad, but the part of the problem was though, this was the year after they went hostless for a couple of years. They had the three women, and it was just like it took too long for each of them to monologue. I remember at one point there was, I think it was the longest stretch. There was like 24 minutes went by without a single award. That was
Yeah.
the last year. It was 2022. Continue.
Yeah, no, I do like Conan a lot, and it's hard to believe that this was his first.
I agree.
Just because it's like he's so effortlessly doing it, and you're right, he does have that edge. He has both that edge and also that same sense of really dumb. It's that in between. I'm gonna butcher the quote, but he said that his brand of comedy lies between the really, really intelligent and the really, really stupid and silly. And if you can find that middle ground and find the good mix of it, that's where he lies, which makes perfect sense. It completely tracks over his whole career. This guy went to Harvard, and also this guy, just hosted late night television for decades, doing some of the stupidest stuff possible. And he's in not a malicious way. A key component for Conan is that obviously at the Oscars, he'll effing make fun of whomever because it's Hollywood elite. But for him, in his regular show, he'll often be the butt of his jokes, which every host is to a degree, but him more than anyone else I can think of, he is the one who's often taking the hits of his own jokes or gags or whatever. So I do appreciate that.
It's like a clear and present humility. It's like a clear and present humility.
Yes, absolutely. Honestly, I would give him like an A- if we're putting a grade on it. I would not mind him if maybe if he does it 5 times in a row, we'll get Conan fatigue. But I'm down for it. And honestly, hosting is a really crappy job anyway. I truly don't envy, and I feel kind of bad for whomever's doing it because it's always, hey, what went wrong with this host? It's never like. He did a good job. I mean, we are, but we're normal people. It's constantly people, trying to tear down that host, and it's an impossible task because there's a lot of politics, right? Not even like American politics, but like internal politics of like how far do I go with this joke, this or that. I can call Drake, what he called Drake, but everyone hates Drake, but then do I make fun of this actor or whomever? And again, it's the Hollywood elite. So theoretically we can make fun of whomever, but the hosts are the one that have to go back into that environment. So I understand it. I get it. It's a tough job.
It very much is. And I thought he did really well. I really did. Yeah. I mean, overall, as far as the winners are concerned, this was a hard year to handicap. I feel like I say that often, but this was I think, an especially hard year to handicap because looking at some of the odds, looking at some of like the bookmakers and stuff like this on this, when the nominees were first announced, I was thinking without much knowledge behind it, I thought Amelia Perez initially, and I usually go between like 3 movies by the time I make my predictions for Best Picture at least. I thought Amelia Perez just for the sheer volume of nominations. But then I look back in recent years and I'm like, well, the movie that gets the most nominations is often not the one to even win the most win the most awards. So I kind of backed off of that. And then there was real hype at the beginning of February for The Brutalist. There was really real hype for that, which is funny because I feel like even having not seen the movie and just knowing what it is, like grand scale epic filmmaking, um, kind of like dystopian in a way, like a whole like life in a 3.5 hour movie. I kind of thought like, the Brutalist, the flowers for the Brutalist was probably what Francis Ford Coppola thought he was gonna get for Megalopolis.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
think about it like that, like it feels like that was supposed to be Megalopolis, was
Hmm.
that movie, and all the praise that it got. So I thought about the Brutalist for a minute. Then I finally said, screw it. It was about 2 weeks ago. I said, Anora's gonna win it. I think Anora's gonna win it. I think it's the most uniformly crowd pleasing movie. I think it's in a way a transgressive movie, but it's not something that like makes an audience member uncomfortable
Hmm.
while kind of challenging preconceived notions about strippers or sex workers or things like that.
Right.
And I also just thought, I said, you know what, if you look at a cornucopia movie, this movie has screwball comedy, tragedy, heartfelt drama, a little bit of action in it too, even as well. It's a very kinetic movie. I for the third year in a row, after what was like 5 years, 6 years in a row of getting it wrong, for the third year in a row, I did get it right in saying Enora was going to win. What was your reaction to it?
I didn't watch it because we didn't review it on this show.
That's my fault.
It's okay. I very for the record, I really don't watch. I can't. I don't have the time to watch movies outside of what uh, what we review on this show. So if it's so, I honestly, this is probably one of the least like homework I've done for the Oscars. Like I've only seen like what Conclave, uh, um, Conclave. No,
Dune,
I saw
Wicked, and
Dune
The
and
Substance.
Wicked. Yeah, Substance. Okay, so I did
You
four
didn't
out of
see the
the.
Bob Dylan movie, did you?
No, I didn't. 4 out of the 10. So yeah, it's not really great for me. But I'm not surprised by it just because I know you've been heaping praise on it, and that is the vibe I have been getting, is that it is an everything movie for a lot of people while still maintaining some degree of edge. Again, I can't verify that because I didn't watch the movie, but it doesn't surprise me that when it won, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like I said last week, Conclave winning best film, that was an underdog. That one is, as much as I truly love that movie. Honestly, by my metric, if you go by my metric, like if I think a movie is really, really good, it's not going to have popular appeal, or I should say, if it's like there's a certain brand of movie that I absolutely love and will give 4 stars that I know a lot of people will not watch, and that's Conclave is my lane for that.
That's fair. And I do think that in there's a lot of other years where Conclave might have or could have won.
Hmm.
I do believe that. I think Conclave had in other years might have had juice to win.
If it
Um,
released, if Pope Francis bites it, and Conclave came out later this year, then there would be a chance. But no.
Correct. You know what I just did to over here? So if I lagged, it was because Google Drive slows my computer down a little bit. But I
Okay.
added, it comes to Hulu on March 17th. I added for the week after next Anora to review.
Oh hell yeah, cool. Because
If the,
I do want to watch. I definitely want to watch it when I saw the trailers, let alone it winning. So I'm down.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much with it. It's not really a movie where you can spoil it
Sure.
necessarily, but it's very much an experiential watch. You really don't know where it's going. It has a lot of downtime in a good way. Like there's about 25 minutes that's singular location between like four different characters.
Okay.
That's really good. Um no, it's a blast. It's a friggin' blast. I was hoping against hope because Kieran Culkin was was really pegged to win from the jump for a real pain for best supporting actor. I was really hoping though, no disrespect to him, actually gonna try and watch a real pain soon. That Yura Borisov from Anora was going to win and you'll see this, and we'll talk extensively about his performance here in a couple weeks.
Mm.
Mikey Madison is the star of that movie. She very much is, and she's excellent in that movie. But when you look at Borisov, he is the soul of it. and he brings a real dimensionality to his character that just brews slowly over the course of 2 hours. And you start to notice it. Baker's really good with how he frames him. You start to notice it more in the midsection and then finally in the third act. I really hope Borisov, too, who is I want to make sure, believe he is Russian. Yes, he's Russian. I really hope he does get more roles. I hope that he does become a semi-regular presence in movies. I hope he's not like Barkhad Abdi from Captain Phillips, the Somalian actor
Oh yeah.
who got nominated for an Oscar and then like had a couple roles and then really faded, which I felt really bad because I loved Abdi in that movie and I thought that he had a really bright future. And I remember like even writing like, why not cast this guy as a supporting character in a buddy comedy?
Mhm.
Set it in Minnesota if it makes you feel better. Like, he was terrific. So I'm hoping Borisov does get more roles because of this, because I think that he does a splendid job of executing that role. Where do you want to go? What stands out to you?
In terms of like favorite win, 'cause
Yeah, favorite
I'm
win,
following your
notable
itinerary, but no, my
notable
favorite
win.
win has got to be, which is again, I didn't watch the movie, but my favorite win is simply the documentary feature film No Other Land. The fact that this movie didn't even have a US release and it still
Yeah.
won goes to show how much the narrative has changed for Palestine and the Middle East and Israel. The narrative has completely flipped over its head, and as a cultural force, at least Palestine has finally had its moment. And I'm sharing my personal opinions here, and it's just very incredible to see. And that's so funny that I'm celebrating that win because, and also I didn't see that movie either, but
How could you?
soundtrack to a coup d'etat sounds like even more of my favorite movie, even more than Conclave, because it's literally about jazz musicians and politics in the 1960s, like international politics. So I'm like, bro, why didn't I watch this? So, no, great works to know. Honestly, as someone who was at the 2024 DNC talking to a lot of, Chicago Palestinians about this issue in particular, I honestly feel like I don't even need to watch it. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that seriously, but just because I've heard so much of this, I'm glad that it's got its moment in the sun, at least. So that's
It
honestly
was
very, very impressive.
definitely one of the more memorable speeches of the night too, right up there with Adrian Brody's win for The Brutalist, which I was surprised about. Now, don't get me wrong. The bookmakers really kind of swayed his way in the last couple of days, but I stuck with Timothy Chalamet for A Complete Unknown
Hmm.
for that role because history will tell you that the Academy, even if the movie's not good, i.e., Meryl Streep and The Iron Lady, even if the movie's not good,
Right.
they will still favor performances of legendary Hollywood or influential figures. Renee Zellweger for the Judy Garland movie that 10 people saw.
Mhm.
There's a long history of this. So I took that as a little bit of a surprise.
I like
That
that
sh-
though. That to
I
me
don't mind it.
that's called playing to the category where it's like, yeah, the movie is shit, but if the actor's really really good at it, and yes, there's the natural privilege of if they're a big name, they're gonna fight through a lot of that, even if it's a bad movie. Whereas a lesser actor in a lesser known movie could give the performance of truly a generation, but if they don't have that name recognition, it's hard to tell. But no, I like that. I'm
Yeah, I
honest,
completely agree.
honestly, like again, I, I'm looking at the slate of movies that I did not watch this year for the Oscars, and it's like, shit, The Brutalist sounds actually really good. Like, it's perfect for me. It's like American Immigrant Story, American Architecture, and like history. It's like shit. All right.
Yeah, I would have loved to have caught it. I would have loved to have seen it. To even just to see Brody's performance too. And again,
I know Joe shared with us a recap of the AI controversy over Adrian Brody's accent, where apparently that was fed with an AI to make it more Hungarian, which is funny to me because all I'm thinking about is his legendary appearance at Saturday Night Live where he was where he introduced a band with a Jamaican accent or something. So it's like, yeah, he like, nope, I'm done doing accents. Let the computer do it. No more accents for me.
Yeah, and again, having not seen the movie, I can't dig into that debate a whole lot yet, or even I need to read more about it, preferably after seeing it, and things like that too. Um, and it's funny to me. In another year, I think Ralph Fiennes could have won it. I think in
Oh,
another
100%.
year, I think he could have won it. Like I do think best actor was a very tight race. Probably, I wish, and they won't. I wish that they would release the voting, or at least the numbers, like the percentages of the
I
votes,
do too.
because I think that would be tight. I think that was going to be tight. And I say that to piggyback off of this. Unquestionably, the biggest upset of the night was Mikey Madison for Best Actress.
Yeah.
Unquestionably. And I'm not upset about it. Now, I would have loved to see Demi Moore for The Substance. I would have loved to have seen that. Like, I think that movie will be among the most featured in her highlight reel. I think she gives a transformative performance in that movie. But Scott Mendelson brought up an interesting point of, and he's kind of been the unsung contributor, or the unknowing contributor to the show for how long. But Scott Mendelson, formerly of Forbes, brought up the point. He said, this was, I think, Friday before the Oscars. He said, obviously, I'm more than happy if Demi Moore wins for The Substance, but he said it's going to be strange if Mikey Madison loses Best Actress and Honora goes on to win Best Actor or Best Picture. It's going to be weird if Madison doesn't win and Honora wins Best Picture, because of the fact that Honora is so inextricably linked to Mikey Madison.
Yeah.
And that's a fair point, because the last time that happened, if you recall, was Birdman. When Birdman won Best Actor, Michael Keaton didn't, or when Birdman won Best Picture, Michael Keaton didn't win Best Actor.
Hmm.
And then 2 years prior, Argo won Best Picture. Affleck wasn't nominated for Best Actor nor Best Director.
I get that though. At least in Argo. It's been a while since I've seen Birdman, but for Argo, I kind of get that because the whole package was a really entertaining movie. But Affleck didn't really stand out to me. He did his job just fine.
It was a case of narrative over
Yes. Yeah.
performances. The only performance.
Birdman makes more sense to me though, or like in the, as a case example. I honestly, in my opinion, Demi Moore still, and this obviously is not hate against any of the other actresses, especially Madison, but for Demi Moore, it's like, damn, you cannot. And again, I haven't seen the movie, I haven't seen Honora, so I'm very extremely biased to the umpth degree. But for Demi, it's like, damn, this is gonna be real tough to beat when I watch Honora in a week or two, because that is such a fine ass performance. And there is an irony too. I'm not going to put too much stock into it, but there is an irony that Demi Moore's whole performance is Demi Moore's character is being replaced by a young, hot, sexier version of her. And then Mikey Madison wins Best Actress. You could argue, and I'm again not trying to make a moral prescription on that one. I will on others, maybe not this year, but I have on others in previous, but not this one. I will not pit two women against each other. I will not make them fight. But
I would have voted Demi. I would have voted Demi, even as much as I love Honora. It would have been close. And I kind of wonder, Catherine and I talked about this during the ceremony. I kind of wonder, because Demi Moore was the chalk from the day even before the announcements were revealed.
Same.
It was Demi Moore with The Substance she was going to win. And then she got nominated. All the odds makers had Demi Moore as like a -250 or a -350 winner. And then Mikey Madison, I think, was next, but still at like +250 or something like that. But
I don't think this played directly into voters' minds, but this could feel like an overcorrection of the Jamie Lee Curtis situation, where it's like when she won Best Supporting Actress for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it's like, yeah, she was good in it, but she didn't really deserve that Oscar. But because she's a legacy actress, that we kind of have the need to give it to her.
she's deserved it in the past, not for a movie in which she was in for like 20 minutes.
Demi Moore is not that.
No.
And absolutely, she would have earned that win. But again, I want to be very clear. I'm not hating on Mikey Madison, especially I don't even have a leg to stand on because I haven't seen the movie. But I will not pit two ladies against each other.
I'm going. They've complicated the Oscar voting process, however I understand it, in the last 5 years, and I'm going to try
Really?
to briefly explain this. It's weighted voting now.
Okay, it's ranked choice. Okay, got it, got it.
It's ranked choice also now.
Oh shit.
So how it works is like the first round of voting,
Yeah.
like two get knocked out. The two performances that don't get as many votes, the second to last and the last, they get knocked out. Then the voters have the three to vote for, and then a winner's chosen on that. Now, Best Picture, they probably go through like 6, 7 rounds of it.
Sure.
But with Best Actress, it's ranked choice. I wonder, and I had the same thought. Now, I don't think it might have been as significant of a play as in this particular case. I absolutely believe it was in place when Anthony Hopkins upset Chadwick Boseman. I think what happened with some of the Academy voters is the Academy voters assumed that Demi was going to win.
Yeah.
And when they assume that Demi's going to win, they're going to vote against the grain and vote for somebody else. Then enough people do that,
yes.
and then it sways the vote. I 100% believe that's what happened with Chadwick Boseman and Anthony Hopkins.
Yes.
I 100% believe that. I mean, Christ, they shifted the ceremony that year so it ended with Best Actor. Like they even going into it was the first time I thought to myself that like they truly do not know who is going to win until that envelope is open, because if they did, there's no possible way they would have put Best Actor at the very end.
Yeah.
There's no way, not especially with Hopkins not being present. That said, though, I think maybe 50-50 that played into it, why Mikey Madison won, was the voters themselves assumed Demi was going to win, and enough of them voted for Mikey that she did.
Oh, I am a big proponent of ranked choice voting in most everything. So honestly, I think that's good for the Oscars. I think it's even better for our political systems here in the United States and the world. First,
Sure.
past the post voting, which is the system that you think of, which is first to majority, simple majority, right? First past the post voting is a poisonous, ruinous system that inevitably produces two political parties. Hence why we have the Republicans and the Democrats. I will end my rant in 30 seconds. But if you ever wondered to yourself, gee, how come there's no other political parties here in the United States, ones with real teeth, and why is it always these two? There's a lot of answers, including money, demographics, et cetera, et cetera. The actual hyper specific technical reason that is kind of like a magic bullet is ranked choice voting, or rather the presence of first past the post voting, which is what we have now on a wide scale. If we had ranked choice voting, and ranked choice voting is not even the cure-all for, there's a lot of other voting systems other than first past, but ranked choice voting is at least better. But anyway, to end that rant and back to the Oscars,
Well said.
I will always say that please vote your heart. Always vote your heart. Yeah, don't do any of that shit. Vote for who you really thought was the winner. And
I agree.
But I agree with you. And I will also make this judgment when I watch Honora in a week or two. I can see it more than the situation with Boseman and Hopkins. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was for sure the biggest upset, though. I think was Demi Moore losing to Mikey Madison. Now, Mikey Madison, to her again, fantastic performance in Honora. Really the heart of that movie. The heart of that movie in terms of the emotional. I mean, everything's happening to her in the movie. Everything's happening to her. It's a dynamic role. She's funny as hell. She's also very tragic of a character in some ways too, but she's not pitiable either. And I also thought she delivered a very nice speech. Very well spoken, very grateful, very honorific, understood the gravity of the movie itself and the external factors of Honora too for sex workers and things like that. I really liked her speech. It was brief, but it was also like, and I think it's also a credit to not only to her, but I think it's a credit to Sean Baker and his wife Samantha Kwan, who's the producer of that movie too. I think they are phenomenal acting coaches. in their hearts. I really
Yeah.
do. I think they're extremely talented. There's a little bit of Linklater in Baker to me. There's a little bit of Richard Linklater in him in terms of not only just being a humanist, but also being somebody who doesn't take conventional actors. You go back to his movie, The Florida Project. He took Brooklyn Prince, a 7-year-old rookie actress, and gave her this movie that was absolutely dynamic and challenging and complicated, and she stole it. Red Rocket, his other movie, did not have very many popular actors at all. I think the one lead actor, if I'm not mistaken, was mainly an actor in commercials. And Baker, I think, goes really against the grain in this. And the challenge for that then is to coach these individuals up to being, because these movies also too, Baker's movies rest a lot on their lead performers. They're inexplicably intertwined to the stories, and I think him and his wife Kwan do an amazing job at that too. I'll note when we come back, I'll note another thing about Baker, who really should have bought mops, clean the fucking house on Sunday with Honora. 4 wins for Honora. I'll come back with another thing on Baker. We'll talk the in memoriam and then kind of give our wraparound thoughts if that sounds good to you.
That sounds good to me.
This is the Oscar recap show. The 97th Academy Awards were Sunday. We are recapping them right now on Sleepless with Steve. A little late, but we are still working through a lot of stuff that was noted in a big, massive 3-hour ceremony, as it always is. We'll come back in just a couple of minutes, give Dom time to check the meatloaf. This is Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We are back, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube after a Zoom-sponsored intermission. We are talking the Oscars. I didn't ask Dom in the beginning. Did you make predictions for this, or did you just watch?
I just watched because I was under-equipped with the movies to make any proper prediction. Like, I didn't have the data, which was watching the movie, to make the proper prediction. I thought, out of all the things that it could win, I was most rooting for Conclave for Best Adapted Screenplay. That felt right to me because obviously the performances were really good, but
I agree.
For the actual pacing, the writing, and the twists and turns, I very much enjoyed that. And honestly, the thing that clinched that Oscar was easily that ending speech by that
Oh
one
yeah.
cardinal that went on to become pope. So yeah, man.
Oh yeah, that absolutely sealed it for Conclave. And most and I completely agree with that too, because most of those movies are very dull
Yeah.
and very sort of uninvolving and cold. And this movie absolutely wasn't. This movie was tremendously engaging and crafty and suspenseful and petty.
Mm.
I was thrilled. I was thrilled that it won the two writing awards. I thought were terrific, between the original screenplay going to Honora and Conclave winning adapted screenplay. To make another comment about Baker too, Sean Baker walked away with four awards because he traditionally works with a really small crew. So it didn't surprise me when he went up there for every single award. He edited Anora, he wrote Anora, he directed it, and he's one of the producers. One of the very it's actually the producer's credit on this movie has the fewest of any of the nominees. It's him, his wife, and Alex Coco are the main producers of this movie. So he walked away with four awards for a single movie. That ties Disney in a single ceremony,
Hmm.
which is pretty incredible. I've had my eye on Baker. I watched his movie. He made a movie, the Florida Project, that was back in 2016,
Yeah.
I want to say. He also did a movie before that. I watched a movie that he did with Dree Hemingway. It was called Starlet, about a 21-year-old woman and an 85-year-old woman who become friends. And I remember watching that. That actually got on Netflix, the DVD.
Okay.
So I've known of Baker for a long time, and to see him up there, like accepting these awards for this great movie. And I'm a firm believer that he's going to make, it's not going to be his only time at the Oscars, up for several awards. And I very well might be wrong about this, but I think Honora will be the crown jewel. He's certainly capable of surpassing it, but I do think Honora is going to be the crown jewel of his catalog, when all is said and done, deservedly so, because I just think that movie has so much for it for everybody that watches it.
Yeah.
Um, I do think it'll live on. And I was also talking to a guy who actually works at the movie theater out here. I was texting with him, and I was saying too, I said, this class of movies, like, I don't know how memorable it is. It's kind of like the Nomadland year, where like there's a
Mm.
lot of movies that like are really good,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Like there was a couple years there, especially during COVID, when the pendulum swung. A lot of movies were coming on streaming in all different directions, and it wasn't just theatrical movies. Like Nomadland and Coda kind of feel like, they're kind of been forgotten in a way,
Yeah.
especially even by film nerds and stuff like that. But I'm going to add though that, like, this year, though, Honora and The Substance are going to be the most memorable movies of the class. I think A Complete Unknown and I think Conclave are always going to be on TV.
Yeah.
I think those are going to be movies that are going to be cable staples. Dune Part Two will obviously be among the best of its blockbuster sci-fi
Yes.
class, of that, especially in contemporaneous times. And then you're going to have, like, Wicked has a monstrous fan base. We're going to go through this again later this year when the second one comes out.
Oh yeah.
And then The Brutalist, I said, will be a letterboxed favorite. So I don't know, and just because I don't know much about them really, the Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here, I don't know how those are going to live on, but I feel like there is, if you really did pay attention and you really did look, there's a lot in this class that's going to be remembered, I do think.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Coda, which is so unfortunate because it is a lovely story, but
That's a
Coda,
great movie.
it's a great movie, but also it's I'm not surprised that it won, and I don't mean that in the best way possible, in the sense that it was stand out. It's not pandering. It's not a pandering movie. It's a real movie, but it checks every box. You know, it checks a lot of good boxes in ways that maybe Oppenheimer does check boxes, but it does it in a more unique and bold way. Whereas Coda was more straight ahead, bare bones, but still very, honest to good filmmaking. I know in your itinerary it says notable moments. I do want to point out here for costume design, Paul Tazwell, first black man to win that category, which is honestly impressive when you think about how massive the menswear industry is that is run for black men specifically.
Right.
Those haberdasheries ran by black men, and
Right.
the suit culture and all that stuff is astounding. So the fact that finally get here in 2025 we get that is honestly pretty damn impressive. Or rather not impressive, but rather not surprising that he won that award. And for Wicked, yeah, that's Wicked picked up a couple of technical awards. That again, I'm not surprised by that either. If you're talking about predictable wins, honestly, the technical awards with Wicked winning, I think one or two of them was hardly a surprise.
Yeah, and I also think too, Wicked would have probably had makeup and hairstyling if the substance wasn't so damn good.
Yes,
Uh,
but like there's something about like a horror movies or that movie in particular, Substance, how grotesque Demi Moore becomes.
yeah.
It is picture of Dorian Gray, which I'm very positive that I mentioned in my review, but it's picture of Dorian Gray to the umpth degree, to the point where you have this massive blob incorporating both Margot Qualley and Demi Moore spewing blood. It's honestly pretty comical, I'm honestly not that surprised by it because the ability to there's beauty and then there is the opposite of grace, which is that movie, and that is the Substance.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I had it pegged to win makeup and hairstyling the substance. And at the end of the day too, like I'm so damn and I'm not gonna go long-winded on this too. I've told this to so many people and I talked about it on the show too. But man, to see Mubi, M-U-B-I, the distribution company,
Yeah,
win an Oscar. This is their highest grossing movie. This is their everything everywhere all at once.
yeah,
Literally and figuratively. This the highest grossing movie. They got an Oscar and it's like, man, this site when I was like 15, 16 years old was a
yeah.
message board.
That's insane.
And like and was a member of and still have quite a few friends from it. Um it's funny this weekend. I won't go into it too much, but one of my friends on that site, probably my best friend on that site, lives in Arizona, and him and his wife have COVID. And I literally called. He gave me the play. I offered, and he gave me the place. I literally called a pizza place and ordered them food to be delivered. And that's a friendship I have because of that website, Mubi. So just to like see that I celebrated like I won the goddamn Oscar, like I'm like a Green Bay Packers shareholder, you know what I
Nice.
mean? And like take credit for that. But I'm so thrilled that The Substance and Mubi won an award on Sunday night. I just thought that was splendid. We'll dive in here to the in memoriam too. This was an active in memoriam too, not only because of the volume of people we lose. We lose a lot every year, but this year was a lot. I mean, hell, leading up to the week. To the week, we lost Michelle Trachtenberg, excuse me, who was not in the in memoriam, unfortunately, and Gene Hackman. And we were gonna open with it, but I thought, you know what, to just keep it on this level. Gene Hackman, I think, obviously, because it's so fresh in our minds, him and David Lynch. The thing with Gene Hackman that's really sad, like, I mean, he was one of those guys I felt like was one of the most Googled actors with if is he still alive because he's been retired for like
Yeah.
20 plus years.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And what sucks though with him dying, I mean, it sucks that he's no longer around, but like where we should be like thinking about his roles like Bonnie and Clyde and Unforgiven, my personal favorite, and all this wealth, Enemy of the State, all these great movies that he did, the weird circumstances around his death that are going to linger now for the next several months is kind of where everybody's attention is at.
Yeah.
Because of all the ways you could suspect a 95-year-old man to die, the one word that doesn't come to mind very often when somebody of that age dies is inconclusive or ongoing investigation. Like, and I just think that's a weird end to a great career. And you could see I'll pass it off to you. You could see, I've never seen Morgan Freeman like that. For somebody who's so visible and so public and is used to doing these award shows, that man looked like he lost a best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like on stage, he was like despondent, eloquent as always, professional as always, but man, like he looked devastated.
Yeah. Yeah, the last thing I think I saw Gene Hackman in, it wasn't French Connection or Superman. It was The Longest Day. Do you remember that? Do you know that movie? Have you seen that movie?
I know of it. I have not seen it.
It's the Saving Private Ryan of its time. So it released in the 60s and it is an
Right.
all-star cast. They really picked crap ton of actors from across Hollywood and beyond to shove into this movie, and it is the D-Day movie before Saving Private, like 30 years before Saving Private Ryan, and it is really good, supplanted by Ryan, but still really good on its own. And Gene Hackman plays a Polish general. I don't think he was Polish, but that was an era where I don't think, or maybe he is, but that was an era where you didn't need to be too authentic with your accents. But still, good performance in terms of the memoriam overall. I thought it was pretty good. Interesting that they did leave out. Goodness,
There was three that I noted.
yeah. Go ahead. Can you name them?
Michelle Trachtenberg from this week, Tony Todd,
Yeah, that was the big one for me. Yeah,
Tony Todd, and Shannon Doherty.
yeah. Trachtenberg, was she in movies?
Zan Summers, Catherine reminds me of too. Shannon Doherty was in, yeah, she was in a handful. She hadn't acted a ton recently, but she was a Canadian actress. She was in a lot. I always think of her from Mallrats, which is like,
Sure.
you know, I always think of her as one of that. She did a number of comedies, number of dramas, and things like that. Those were the three though that surprised me. And like of course people are gonna like pay added attention with Trachtenberg because she just died.
Right.
But then I thought about it, I'm like, there's no Tony Todd either. I'm like, God damn
That was
it,
the big
man.
one. Because the others, I guess I can see that you're not as big, but either way, I will say I don't understand how hard it is to pick a song that everyone just enjoys for these things. They did like Requiem. They did, I think it was what, Beethoven or Mozart's Requiem
Yeah.
for this in memoriam, and it just gives off the wrong vibe. Don't get me wrong, it's a great piece of work.
Kind of hopeless.
It is hopeless, and it's like that's not what people want to be feeling. I understand that maybe a lot of the filmmakers that were in that montage liked that song. I'm positive because it's an extremely famous song, but yeah, don't come on. Like look, it's cheesy to have David Grohl playing Blackbird. If you remember that one year he did that,
Right, right.
it's cheesy, but it's the in memoriam. We can be cheesy. That's fine. It's okay. I wish they would just pick a song that everyone likes and just go with it, or go with very generic. I know that's lowering the bar significantly, but just go with something that you don't need to reinvent the wheel with that one, man. It's
Elton
death.
John. Elton John's Funeral for a Friend is right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Or Candle in the Wind even.
Sure,
I think
yeah.
Candle in the Wind would be. I know that's a more personal story, and is
Right.
not applicable to everybody. You
Well,
know,
no,
like
Candle in the Wind. It's about Marilyn Monroe, and then
Right.
later Princess Diana. But so there you go. It's got a Hollywood connection right there. And that
never knowing who to cling to. I know it's a little bit more personal on that
Right.
front, but those would be the two. I'd be like, just go Funeral for a Friend, like something that doesn't feel like completely hopeless. You know what I mean? And then afterwards, my personal suggestion: make it a little jubilant and celebratory, and do Kiss from a Rose. That's my answer to everything.
there you go.
But I did like it. I also loved, to tell you the truth, actually top 5 moment of this year's Oscars was Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey honoring Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
With the Wiz. And talk about a movie that like when that movie came out, granted I wasn't alive, but when that movie came out, it was not particularly well received. And it was one of those movies that, like, I hate to use this term, I hate to use this phrase. Makes me think of Soul Plane. But what the saying is for the movie Soul Plane was that it bombed in theaters but went platinum in the streets. Like, but that was The Wiz. The Wiz was like the cult following movie, especially for African American audiences. I mean, you took a story like that and you made it an all black cast, which was not a common thing, and it wasn't like a black exploitation movie either.
Right.
It was like an absolutely real attempt
Interpretation.
to
Yeah.
interpretation, an honest and earnest one too. And it's got some great music in it too. I'm really glad that movie got on that stage, you know.
Yeah, me too. Out of all of them, like they could have done Star Wars easily, or not Star Wars. Sorry,
Yeah.
not no
Or-
no no no. If they did Austin Powers, could you imagine for that scene? But anyway, you know what I mean. For Quincy Jones, I'm so glad that he was tributed in that way because he is 1,000% a legend. He earned his entire career, earned every second of that tribute, and it made way more sense than the James Bond tribute.
Then the Bond tribute.
It wasn't bad. I get
No.
it. It was fine. It was good even. But
But
there's
but
there's the dissonance of like, why are we doing this? What's going? Oh, did I miss an announcement or like
the,
what's going on?
and like it's such a weird time because like we had the Bond 50,
Right.
which was huge, rightfully so.
And they did good with
But
that one. Yeah.
they did great with that one.
They
And
did
they did
Shelley
well with
Horn
this one.
Shelley Horn doing a Goldfinger, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and GoldenEye,
No, I think Goldfinger. I don't know. Either way,
Gold,
yeah.
Gold. Um, you made Austin Powers. Now I'm all you made the Austin Powers reference. I'm all screwed up. Yeah, I think it was Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Moreover, though, with the Bond tribute, though, it felt like such a weird time to do that. And I'm not even a Bond fan, but like it felt like such a weird time to do that because the rights are in a weird spot now, reverting to Amazon. They don't have the next Bond. They don't have like the next guy in line. It's kind of in a weird limbo rights period, which is like really unsexy. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so I'm like, I just thought it was weird to do that. Like, especially when the
concur.
most recent press was the rights reversion. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I texted you guys when it was going on. I'm like, this is cool and all, but like, is this just Bezos shoving it in our faces that he bought the Bond? franchise?
I would have rather taken that time for Quincy. Like, give him a full, like,
Yeah.
kind of tribute, given all that he touched and all that he worked with. I would have rather had that. But the Bond tribute, there wasn't anything bad about it. You know what I mean? It was
No, it's
decent.
good.
It was a decent tribute. I also want to say I'll be remiss to say too. Shout out Sean Baker, shouting out his mom for her birthday, but also too, like what a great speech from him when he won Best Director, and said like movies need to be in theaters longer. And this is something I was talking about this when I was doing this show solo on the radio. I said one of the biggest problems, and I remember saying this at like 2:30 in the morning with nobody listening. I remember saying this. I said one of the biggest enemies right now to movie going is the fact that the theatrical to DVD, at the time it was DVD more so than streaming, the theatrical to streaming window has shrunk so considerably that we'll just wait until it's on DVD or wait for Redbox was becoming a popular thing for people to say. And this was 2016. Now it's even worse. Love Hurts is still playing out here at my local theater, and the fucking thing is on Voodoo. Like it's even worse now. It's like especially if a movie tanks, you get like 2 weeks. You get like 2 weeks, and then it's on streaming. And it really screws the indie movies. And I thought the pendulum might have shifted a little bit last summer because we had Elemental, the Pixar movie. Now, if you remember, Elemental came out and did not do well in theaters opening weekend. It
Right.
opened way below what they expected for Pixar originals. And a lot of people were saying it was going to be like, we're going to get Toy Story 8 now. Like, we're not going to get an original Pixar movie, until 2030. But Disney, to their credit, there was reports that they were considering putting it on Disney Plus in like a month in July.
Wow.
but they took the wait and see approach because that summer there were not a lot of kid movies out until like August. So they took the wait and see approach. They didn't pull any theaters. They just said, let's see if this burns.
Hmm.
Let's see if this has a slow burn. And wouldn't you friggin' know, the damn thing made like $500 million in theaters when all said and done.
Mm.
And because again, it was one of the only kids movies that came out during that time. It was an animated movie. It was original. Parents probably didn't really know what it was if they caught the trailer from the kitchen
Right.
on TV. They probably didn't recognize it, and they gave that movie time to succeed. Now, not every movie is going to have that kind of shelf life, but I feel like a lot of movies just don't have a fighting chance now.
There's no confidence. Yeah, 100%. There's absolutely no confidence. You go straight for the streaming, and it's like, yeah, it's capping yourself. It's like a young college kid that just doesn't have the confidence, the self confidence to fail, the self confidence to succeed, but on a $1 trillion studio level across an entire medium. And it's so depressing because could you imagine working on your magnum opus, or what you believe is your magnum opus, for whatever film out there, and it gets a month? Like, imagine you are,
Not
yeah,
if it's lucky.
yeah, exactly. And I understand there's thousands of movies that happens to all the time, but imagine it is Oscar worthy, right? Or it's got the backing, it's got all the right ingredients, but there's just no confidence in you. And that's so, and I know, again, I acknowledge that happens all the time in other avenues, but for this added thorn in the side of streaming, as much as we all love it, it's an unnecessary burden that's just capping the entire economics of this whole art form that we love. It's depressing.
And then I think the other irony part of it too is like you look at like, and again, I know I'm not a robot. I don't live in a robust market, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I am limited in a way by what I can see on a given week. I was just going over to Box Office Mojo. Anora was in 808 theaters this past weekend, the weekend of the Oscars. It was in 808 theaters. And you know what? That's not a lot. That really isn't. But that is exorbitantly more than Nickel Boys. That's more than I'm Still Here. That's more than The Brutalist. And part of it is too. It's like with these movies. Even I think this year mostly Nickel Boys, I'm Still Here, and The Brutalist. They weren't on streaming, and they were very limited releases. All
Mm-hmm.
three of them for Oscar-nominated movies, and two of those won. Like, and I
No,
think that's another part of the problem.
no other land won best documentary, and it's not available anywhere.
It's like
Special
with
case,
more
very special case, I know, but yeah.
right. But with more access, it's almost like we're still limited. Like I still think the fucking shorts are way too inaccessible. I think even
That's
more.
nuts.
You know what was funny? But they were more accessible like 7 years ago because I used to rent them on Amazon. They used to put them all together. The Academy did this. They used to put them all together in like a 2.5 hour thing you could rent for $4.99, and that's how I used to watch them for like 4 years in a row. They quit doing that then when streaming became prevalent, and then like Yuck took a deal with of this year. Yuck took a deal with Netflix. Magic Candies took a deal with somebody else, like for distribution purposes, but then they're all over the place. They're like all over the place. You have to work to find them. You know what I mean? Uh, Last point I will make, at least for closing thoughts purposes. Last point I will make, Catherine and I watched it the day after the Oscars. Let me tell you, Flow, the movie that won Best Animated Feature, lovely movie.
Yeah.
Lovely
Did
movie.
you think the animation was good? Because it gave in the brief clips that I saw at the Oscars, I saw that I don't know if I gel with this animation because it seems very, I don't know, wooden.
You
But
have
that's that. I can't judge. I can't judge.
The animation, here's the thing. They did something really interesting with the animation, and it takes a little bit to get used to.
Okay.
We're so used to textured, especially animals.
Right.
We're so used to textured animals with fur and like
Yeah.
detail in them. The animals in Flow are very, and don't get me wrong, they're still complicated animation creations, but at the same time though, they look plain. all of the detail is in the water, the trees,
Got it.
the sunlight, the fireflies, and everything. There is so much going on in this movie in terms of shadows and water and environmental instances and flooding and things like that. There's so much detail that engulfs these animals that it like dwarfs them.
Okay.
And which is true because these animals, it's about these animals being victim to the elements in Latvia. Because I guess Latvia is a region that floods quite a bit. That was news to me. Um, but it's a really well done movie. It doesn't help that Catherine's cat is an all black cat, just like Flo in the movie.
Got it.
So she got extra love that night too.
That's funny.
I've been calling her. Her name's Hecate. I've been calling her Flo all week. Um, because she's got the same look. She's all black, yellow eyes. Like
Yeah.
it's the same identical looking cat. Great movie though. No dialogue in it. One of the only and maybe the only animated movie I can think of that also prominently features one of the most underrated animals in the entire kingdom, and that animal is a capybara.
Okay. Yeah. Beloved by the internet, but yeah, not often showcased in other media.
They are the weirdest looking creatures. The world's largest rodent. They are the weirdest looking creatures, and it's so funny because like everything is trying to kill this cat or hurt this cat in the
Right.
beginning, and then she's like, obviously this cat's petrified when she gets in a boat with a capybara. The capybara walks up to the cat, sniffs it once, plops down, and goes to sleep. It was a really beautiful movie. Really glad it won. It's on HBO Max. Definitely worth a watch. I think I've kind of said all that I had to say. I went 13-10 this year. Not a banner year for me predictions wise. I went against the grain on a few, admittedly. I took Brady Corbett for director instead of Baker. I took Demi Moore, obviously, instead of Mikey for best actress. I went against the grain on a few in hopes of going 23-0 and an outside chance, but 13-10 was my record for this year. Not a banner year, but an entertaining year no less. And I'm also really looking forward to what you think of Honora here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I got a small amount of hype going because of what you've been talking about, and just what I've seen of it, or like the trailers and stuff did look very good. So I'm excited for that too. For my closing thoughts, I honestly I get what you're saying about how this was a good year for movie, not a great year for movies, because
Yes.
that's how I feel about it too, and of what I have seen, of course, and it's good, and especially with Conan hosting, I very much appreciated it. So I can't wait to see him back, assuming that he'll be back next year. I think he's got the case for it, considering how pretty well this one went, and we'll see. I think I do not even know what's upcoming this year in movies. To be frank,
It's hard to track because there's so many outlets where these movies can be released.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. I wrote this in my predictions piece on stevepulaski.com. I wrote about this. I said there's really no such thing as award season anymore.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. There isn't. Now, disproportionately still more movies that can tend to come out after September. Conclave did, The Substance did, A Complete Unknown did, Nora did. A disproportionate number of movies still come out after September in the fall.
Yeah.
But with streaming though, there really is no concrete award season. It used to be. I still watch a couple Oscar prognosticators, and it's still all over the map because it's just like you just don't know where to look, and you don't know where the Academy is looking either.
Yeah. I would love to get more data on the Oscars situation, or like the voting block. I understand you can't give exact numbers and what have you, but man, just to get some percentages, that'd be so interesting to me. So interesting.
I agree. Great recap. Really great recap tonight. On short notice too, or given a delayed start.
I'd love to hear what Joe thinks when he comes back next week. I think
Might
next
give him
week.
the floor. I'll give him the floor for the first like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Kind of recap what he would have to say and stuff like that. Next week we got a movie from an Oscar winner, Bong Joon-ho's new movie, Mickey 17. I think it's going to be one of the most original movies, for better or for worse, released this year. It's like all Bong Joon-ho movies. It looks indescribable in a way. Looks like you just have to watch it, and that's what we're going to do this weekend. Check this movie out. First movie he made since Parasite back in 2020 or 2019, which is wild.
That's
to think
so
about.
crazy. Good for
It's
him.
been
That means
that
he's
long.
that means he's taking his time with it. That's awesome. I do have a small concern, and I would love to be proven wrong. Small concern that this movie is going to become too mainstream, too casual, because it has a pretty straightforward plot from the trailer and the basic story synopsis. But it seems like a typical, not typical, but rather straightforward sci-fi with thing with a very clear, capitalism will tear you up, spit you out, and ruin your life message, which was also Parasite. The thing with Parasite, and I will say for a few seconds, is that the thing with Parasite was that how esoteric it felt, and then how implicit the and simple and implicit the message was. So that's my prediction, and I would love for Bong Joon-ho to smack me across the face and prove me wrong. I'm looking forward to it.
I hope it's another bong hit, as I keep saying. I'm looking forward to it because his movies are just unique. He did Okja before he did Parasite. He did Snowpiercer. Bong Joon-ho is just fascinating. The inner mechanics of his mind and the way he thinks about plot and structure and characterization is just interesting. He's working off of source material. This is based on a novel called Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. So, and this has been hyped on, like, this has been
He
a
added
Reddit
plus
darling
10.
for a
He
long
added
time.
plus 10 to the movie. It can't fail.
Tell me about it. He took it to a 10 there. And Robert Pattinson's in it. I'm a big fan of him. Naomi Ackie is also in it too. Stephen Yun from Nope. Naomi Ackie too was in Rise of Skywalker as well, but I really liked her last year in Blink Twice. So I'm excited to see what she does with this movie too. We will talk about it next week. That's our show. Look forward to chatting with you. Gang's all back together next week for Mickey 7. Appreciate you sticking with us at this ungodly hour of 8 o'clock Central Time. For Dominic Guanzon, who I know is getting hungry for that meatloaf, Joe Viso, unseen but still loved, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.